Baddies? Andy, do you want to go
Yeah.
first?
Sure. I'll start kind of large and in charge with something classic to our generation, Megatron from Transformers Generation 1. 1984 to who knows when. Because when it actually ended is questionable depending on which region you're in. Hey, but uh, Megatron was such an iconic villain both because he was a schemer, he was intelligent, there was power behind it, and come on, who doesn't love hearing Decepticons retreat all the time? Um, he's a perfect foil to Optimus Prime, where Prime is honor and decency and respect. Megatron is conniving and cunning and all sorts of other monstrous traits. Plus, he's a giant robot who turns into a pistol.
We all do love
So,
that.
it's both the appearance and the character. Um, Next one on the list is one that's actually going to be probably a little bit shocking to the three of you because you are all British. I don't know if you ever got Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century over there. I don't think they did that level of a national insult. um, okay, it
Never
was
heard
a
of it.
cartoon. It was a cartoon that came out in 2002 to 2004 on Fox. And the major conceit is that Sherlock Holmes was cryogenically preserved after the incident at Reichenbach Falls. Um, his he gets revivified, and a robot assistant by the name of Watson, of course, is assigned to
Obviously.
him. And one of his greatest allies is Inspector, I think it's Anne Lestrade, who is, of course, the descendant of the famous Inspector Lestrade. And what that series does better than the books and better than some of the movies, even, is working Moriarty as the mastermind and also at the same time as the sort of sycophantic character in a sense, too, where Moriarty didn't want, created a crime wave when he was reawakened because New London is so easy to do it in. But he didn't think it was worth it without having Holmes there. So he did things that led to Holmes being brought back because he knew a villain without a hero is pointless and a hero without a villain is pointless. So the two of them continue this ongoing thing where Moriarty is constantly doing some crime that relates to one of the old stories. Um, you know, he steals a computer chip based on the Carbuncle story. He has the disappeared man story. He's got a whole bunch of them that carry through. And the only character that I don't think appears really in any form is Irene. But this story was mostly about that villain and hero balance, where Moriarty is constantly the background villain, and he's always there. And I think it works better there than it does in some of Conan Doyle's stories, where people have tried to retroactively fit him into the stories. So instead, it works as a new iteration. And I like that sort of next level villain, that planner villain sort of thing, where Holmes is both the planner and has to be on the ground. Moriarty is almost never on the ground. Um, Next one, is a character that is near and dear to my heart, in part because I kind of lived that lifestyle for a while. Gordon Gekko, from the movie Wall Street.
Okay, interesting.
Have you ever seen? You've seen the movie, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
both that one. And there's a reboot or sequel. I don't know what.
Sequel, Money Never Sleeps. I still haven't
Yeah.
seen it. I was going to
I've not
watch
seen
it
it.
last night again, and it was just like, nope. But let me give you a couple of lines from this character. The biggest lines. I am not a destroyer of companies. I'm a liberator of them. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works. Greed clarifies, cuts through, and captures the essence of the evolutionary spirit. Greed in all its forms, greed for life, for money, for love, knowledge, has marked the upward surge of mankind. This is a character where, as I said, he's near to my heart because you have the instinct there. You have there is some sense of evil in him, but he's also a return to form for America, for investments, for money. And that's something that I like about it because, yes, he's taking apart this steel company and this paper company and this and this that, right? But why is he doing it? He's doing it for himself and for the investors and for those around him. And in a sense, I've seen that from the other side. I've seen that from his side. I've seen that as an investor on the other side, where no matter which side you're in, you get stuck holding the bag. It's not great for the employees of the company. Start
No.
there. It's not great for the smaller investors who get a short-term boost in stock price, but then have to sell right then and there instead of holding the company. But it creates economic movement. It creates profit. So while he is a villain, no question, and the way he goes about things is seen as wrong, both in the movie and kind of in real life, because there were SEC regulations that went into place because of the schemes that were talked about in this movie. Same thing as in Office Space, where they actually put in banking regulations because of that movie. For some reason, I seem to be getting into people who have regulations around them. I don't know why. But, yeah. So I guess I'll kind of leave the real world aside again and go to my next one. Visser 3 from the Animorphs. The only Andalite controller, the murderer of Elfangor, the primary villain of Animorphs. A galactic level threat in the body of a horse that eats through its feet with a scorpion tail.
A centaur that eats for its feet with a scorpion tail.
Yeah. And, oh yeah, talks through telepathy and can transform into anything. And they are... Andalites are weird.
I
I love
the
them.
show though. I obviously
Yes.
I've read the books as well, but I absolutely grew up with the show and it was amazing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I remember that.
The show was great. The books were better. In part because the show didn't get into some of the deeper stuff that the books got into as they went on.
Did the show ever get to the twist with the whole Visser 1 thing?
It's been a very long time since I've watched it. It's been out for 20 odd years.
So. Yeah, it's been a few years for me too. I don't remember whether they got to Visser 1.
Because I remember that doesn't actually come into play in the books until I think it's like the 13th or 14th book.
Yeah, it's 13 or 14, yeah. I think it's 13.
And then I think that the show only got up to like book 5 or 6 or something.
I want to say but the show actually brought in a couple of plot points from later because they brought in the oatmeal plot, which I know that sounds ridiculous to anyone who hasn't read the books. Apple cinnamon oatmeal is one of the best weapons against the alien invaders.
This sounds like product placement.
I think it probably was.
A little bit.
Yeah, before all the rules came in, I think it probably was.
Just a little. Kind of like ordering a Happy Meal with extra happy. But I love Visser 3, especially of all of the Yeerks, because I thought about Visser 1, but she doesn't end up being as distinctly villainous. She's the plotter, she's the planner, she's the conniver. But Visser 3 is the one where if you are in the wrong place at the wrong time, he will kill you. He will just murk you.
And he doesn't care.
Right.
He enjoys it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the funny thing is that when the Andalite general that was taken over by the Yeerk was let out, he wasn't much better. Okay.
Was Animorphs actually a thing in the Netherlands, John?
I think it might have been, but I've not really seen. Like I think I just looked it up. I think I recognize kind of some of it, but I've never really actively watched it.
The big thing you might recognize is that Iceman from the first 3 X-Men movies was the main character.
Yeah.
I forget that every time. Every time it comes up, I forget.
Wait. Hold up. We need to pause there for just a second. Are you really saying that Jake is the main character?
Yes.
Tobias is.
Not that I noticed.
He should be, but he's not. No.
I guess maybe. Yeah, you're right. In the show, he wasn't. In the books, he kind of ends up being because of his background.
Marco should have been the main character.
Okay, how about this? How about we just say Rachel and we'd be happy with it?
Yeah,
I'm happy with that.
Yes, the lady who turns into a bear should be the main character. Boom.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds like it makes sense.
It does.
Yes.
We're all in agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
just go boogie with a bear.
But yes,
Yeah.
this is 3. Yeah. I mean, I also thought about from the same series, David. The traitor from there, but no, I decided the big alien guy was the better villain because he has the shock value, and he is a general, and yeah, he is a great villain and a great antagonist, and a great foil to the Animorphs, where all 5 of them need to work together to even come close to matching him because he's been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
And then the last one, going back to that regulation thing, Megatron caused the orange caps on toy guns. Gordon Gekko caused SEC regulations. And Nurse Ratched caused the closure of a lot of the mental institutions in America. With one Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Whether it's the excellent movie or whether it's the book by Ken Kesey, Nurse Ratched is terrifying. If anything, the movie takes away from her a little bit by humanizing her. Because in the book, it's all a sort of stream of consciousness from the character Chief, the one who never talks. And he sees her in his drugged up delusions as a complete, monstrous, demonic thing dressed in the skin of an angel. And it's horrifying, and anyone who's ever been anywhere near a mental institution, whether they've been in it, whether they've had friends that were sectioned, whether they were, just in it for whatever reason, understands exactly what Kesey is getting at there and the abuses that happen. The electroshock scene in the movie and the torture that was changed America. It changed the way we viewed mental health treatment. It changed the way we viewed what we were doing. And Nurse Ratched, while in a sense she's only following orders, she's only doing what she has to. That isn't care. That isn't rightness. That isn't rehabilitation. That's torture. That's abuse.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Nurse Ratched that makes her such a compelling villain, because she should be so much better. There is that expectation when you see a nurse's uniform. You don't expect to see the abuses and the tortures that cause the overreactions from someone like McMurphy or any of the others. And the absolute breakdown of humanity that she caused. And yeah, like I said, the electroshock scene in the movie, the injection scene in the book, it all culminates in that huge escape scene where they're not just escaping from the institution. It's specifically to get away from her. And that changed everything about American society up to that point. And if that's not something a great villain does, you tell me.
Definitely, as someone who works in, that type of environment, she is definitely a villain. She terrifies me.
Mm-hmm.
So 100% I can agree she's a villain.
And the worst part is that if you work in that environment and you are doing any of the administration, you can understand where she started from.
Oh god, yeah.
That's the scarier part.
Yeah.
Because she is so human, and she is also a well-developed character.
Yeah. That's all yours, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Ben, do you want to go next? Tell us all your favourites.
Yeah, so I am going to start with the obvious one for me. Let's go with the Power Rangers one. Which I may, to be fair, I probably could have made an entire list just with Power Rangers villains.
Oh, yes.
I'm proud that you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only used two, and the second one I'm doing is more of a general ilk of villains, and I picked what I think was the best done one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting with Lord Zed, who, again, sort of in terms of the big bads in Power Rangers, you've got quite a few that are very good, but like he's a character who's literally described as being the Emperor of Evil in his first appearance. Something which, let's be honest, could very easily turn into being almost pantomimey. But not only does he maintain a serious presence and serious threat throughout his early appearances, he was actually so extreme that parents complained and they had to tone him down, which is how you get the bit where Rita drugs him and makes him marry her, but that's a whole other thing.
Which arguably makes Rita the bigger villain there.
No, because you then got what you get later on. I'm thinking the last couple of seasons he's been in, where they very much based him on his first half of season 2 characterization versus any other characterization.
But we're not going into spoilers because I've still not seen it all.
Okay.
Really?
Yes.
How long has this been out?
2 months?
It's not been 2 months, man.
Has it? Hasn't it?
Getting up there on the statute of limitation.
It's about 3 weeks. And I've had half term.
You should have made the child watch it.
No, because I tried to watch Time Force today, and we got about 15 minutes in, and she wanted to turn it off. So no.
How would she want to turn off Time Force?
No, I know.
Time Force is dark, to be fair.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to Lord Zed.
Yeah. I mean, what I also I like what they do with him in the comics.
Yes.
Which spoiler warning now. Okay. So first of all, they gave him a whole backstory where he was actually Zordon's mentor, and then the whole reason why he's this skinless entity in a metal frame with a face mask is because he tried to take the Zeo crystal, and only someone who's pure of heart can do that. Hence why you have the bit at the end of Mighty Morphin going into Zeo with the Rangers. But then in the more recent stuff, he also actually got his own power coin and became a Power Ranger.
What?
Yes.
I've got one question. I've got one question.
Yeah.
What color? I've got half a dozen.
Yeah.
What color? Yeah. He's sort of a red and white ranger.
So like Gokai Red type thing?
No, like his suit can't quite decide if he wants to be a red ranger or a white ranger.
So Tommy then.
Yeah, to be fair, it feels like they've basically gone, oh, well, we've had Tommy and Jason. Yeah, we're just going to take the two and shove them together. Never mind that should be red and green, but we won't go into that. And I'm going to move swiftly on because otherwise I'll probably be going on all night about that particular kettle of fish.
Oh, yeah, we could go into Power Rangers kettles very soon.
Yep. So instead, I'm going to move on to the next one on the list, which I've got. This one's a grey area, Seto Kaiba in Yu-Gi-Oh! So he is the first opponent that Yugi faces in the pilot episode, and he is his rival running through the entire original anime. I can't speak too much to the manga because I've only read a few volumes of that. I haven't read the whole thing.
I can speak to it.
Yeah. But I know that in the manga he is a lot worse to the extent that he point blank tries to kill people. In the anime, he's nicer. He doesn't kill anyone. He just ruins their lives by like having his company buy their towns and demolish them.
Screw the rules. I have money.
Yeah, that is basically his entire MO. Like,
but it's a theme in baddies.
Yeah, he's basically Lex Luthor dialed to an 11. And made worse because, well, the first episode establishes that he's like 16 years old. So, literally, you have this kid who has more money than God and, well, goes around playing children's card games and potentially killing them behind the scenes. But he gets a redemption arc throughout, which they then completely undo in the first movie by having him go back to his obsession with trying to beat Yugi, which is his entire driving force, because he can't deal with the fact that this kid beat him at a children's card game.
Especially not a third-rate duelist with a fourth-rate deck.
No, that's Joey, not Yugi.
Oh, right. You're right. Yes. Oh, no, he just had pathetic cards.
No, his grandfather's deck has no pathetic cards. It does, however, contain the unstoppable Exodia. However, Kaiba makes the list purely because man who is obsessed with dragons. And you combine all the traits that I've said previously with obsessed with dragons, and he's automatically awesome.
Especially when you find out later about who the dragon is and so on.
What makes it even better is just the fact that you find out that although he does all these really, really horrific things, it actually stems from the fact that his adoptive father was point blank abusive of him and his brother. And it's actually, it is learned behavior. That's his whole thing. And unfortunately, he's just always been a little bit too clever.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to get off that one because it's going to get very dark in a minute, and I can see Becca's face.
But yeah. I don't know the game. I don't know the comics. I don't know the manga. It's not one that I would have thought of. But it sounds a bit dark.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I just
the
thought
anime.
It was a game.
No, it's based on a manga and anime that gets insanely dark.
Yes.
Like, it's not the darkest thing I've ever seen or watched. That's still Overlord, which was amazing, but
Parasite.
not seen it.
You should.
Okay, I'll add it to my watch list. But no, it is a very, very
and my
dark
video
thing.
just glitched again.
Yes, I can see that you're frozen.
No, yeah. What was your next one
But
then?
So the next one I've got is General Zod from Superman.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to go with any particular version of him because there's been countless ones. All I will say is it won't be the DCEU one because there he was just generic megalomaniacal general. Like
Man of Steel? No?
Yeah, Man of Steel and The Flash. Where, like, don't get me wrong, Michael Shannon, phenomenal actor, but the character was not well utilized. Meanwhile, you compare that to, so the two that spring to mind for me are obviously the Terrence Stamp one in the Christopher Reeve Superman films. Because, well, Terrence Stamp, and also everyone knows the whole kneel before Zod bit. Coupled with the moment where Superman then proceeds to break his hand. But the thing I love about him is he is literally... This is what happens when you take someone who has all the same powers as Superman and you remove every ounce of care, compassion, and humanity from them.
Yeah.
Like, all the things that... And ironically, it's exactly what a lot of people... Like, well, it's what Lex Luthor continually brings up as why Superman is so dangerous. Because if you take away all those things, you make him that alien. He is literally... Well, he's at a power level where you would need to be an actual god to fight him. Or have a little green rock. Little green rocks work too. And you just...
Either or.
Yeah.
Chuck it at him.
So, yeah, god level powers or little green rock. Or be Batman and have some prep time. Because that always works.
Which involves the little green rock.
Usually, or some red solar lamps. But more likely the little green rocks, because we know that Batman himself also borders on being a bad guy half the time and is very, very brutal. Again, I'm going to hide this.
I'm going to put this away. Yes, I love that.
Yeah, but yeah, at times he borders on being the villain himself. But anyway, so I'm now going to go to my other Power Rangers choice. And this one is, again, it's more of the archetype, and I've basically picked a favorite, and that is the evil Power Ranger. Where, again, it's that same theme. It is literally, you take the hero and you make them bad. So the one that I really like is the White Ranger in Power Rangers Dino Thunder. I should be clear, I am talking about the original one, not the clone one that's with him for the second half of the series after he turns good.
Yeah.
Because that clone one was just a really, really bad writing choice, which I think was necessitated by them still having...
If you watch the original Sentai, you'll understand.
Because in the Sentai, he stays evil for a lot longer.
Stays evil all the way through.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
I was going to say, because I know that in the Sentai, he was so dark that he nearly got Power Rangers cancelled.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for God's sake, the character's name in the Sentai is Aber Killer. Like, bearing in mind it's the Aber Rangers, so it's literally his name is literally Killer of the Aber Rangers.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's still my favourite Sentai after Magi Rangers, without a doubt.
It's on my watch list. I've not got around to it. Yeah.
I'll be honest, my favorite is still Car Ranger. I know it's a parody, I know it's a joke, but I love it.
My favorite is Gokaiger, which makes me really angry when I watch Megaforce. Or Super Megaforce.
So why do you like Trent as the White evil ranger.
Right. Because of the fact that you've got the bit where he is initially evil because of the fact that the Dino Gem's corrupted. But you've also got the bit where where sort of he's found out that's what's going on. And then you've got that moment with him and Connor where Connor tries to talk him out of being the bad guy, and he basically says, but why would I want to stop being bad? It's so much fun. And it's like, a lot of his motivation when he's the evil White Ranger is because it's fun. Because I am enjoying kicking you guys around.
Yeah.
And then he decides it's less fun when Connor turns all spiky and starts beating him up.
Also, when Tommy decides to step in and go, wait, you're a White Ranger. Hi. Let me tell you who invented the brand, dude.
Well, also, you're an evil Power Ranger. Let me tell you who invented the brand.
Yes.
Because also you have literally got the original Evil Ranger versus the current one there.
Yes, and when Tommy finally stepped in and said, we've done this before, and I'm not doing it again.
I mean, Tommy is very familiar with doing it. He goes back to being evil every sort of couple of seasons.
Yes.
Yeah, because, you know, the character was just better. But Trent, I mean, he does it to such a degree, he literally steals their Zords.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a case of, oh, I'm just beating you up, I'm just winning the fight. It's like, no, I like these giant robots. They're mine now. Oh, and now I'm going to use them to beat you up some more.
Oh, like Tommy did with the Megazord.
He never took control of the Megazord, though. He just turned giant and beat up the Megazord. And then, yeah, I'm going to move on from there because, again, all night.
Yes.
So last one, Reverse Flash, and I am talking explicitly the Arrowverse here.
Okay.
Because see, I'm not sure if I'm necessarily in a complete minority here, but I know especially among my friends I am. I really like the Matt Letcher version of the Reverse. So most of the time it's Tom Cavanagh, but I like I mean, I like both of them. Both of them played the character brilliantly. And also, there is distinct differences in the characterization, which is quite good in and of itself. It's not a case of, oh, we've got these two guys, we're just going to play the exact same thing. No, you can see the differences. You can also see how one could grow to become the other.
Yeah.
But, like, his whole thing is just, he starts off as a character who he wants to be like the Flash. He wants to be the Flash. And then he finds that he can't be. So he then decides, no, you know what? Okay, if I can't be you, I'm going to be the inverse of you. I am going to be your opposite. And he even puts it in one episode, I think it's in season 7 or 8, where he says that his original motivation when he started being the villain was he was trying to force the Flash to be better. He was trying to make the hero be better. But then, like, admittedly, he then goes, oh, this guy doesn't like me when all I'm trying to do is make him better. Yeah, you're trying to make him better by making his life a living hell. Like, the guy's not going to like you. He's going to hate you.
Yeah.
And then particularly when you double down on that and go back in time and murder his mother.
Yeah.
Like, and frame his father for it. At that point, you are not going to be particularly well liked by this man.
Yeah, very much.
But it's just, the characters played so well, and a big part of it is actually the performances they put in. And there's all these subtle little nuances. And I mean, the fact that you had the version of the Reverse Flash played by Matt Letcher, who's meant to be the original version before he took on the face of Harrison Wells, he was meant to be a sort of 1 or 2 episode appearances, and then you never see him again.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was so good they made him the main villain of the 2nd season of Legends of Tomorrow. Because he was also the first villain to be sort of main villain across 2 shows.
Yeah.
And then they turned around and brought back the other version of the Reverse Flash, and yeah, whole thing, time travel makes everything super duper confusing.
Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
Wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Okay, John, your turn.
I'll be honest. So far, I've just been staring blankly ahead through all of these references that I don't get. So here goes. I think I owe it to the game I run in X-Men to name drop Magneto first and foremost. Because when we're looking at antagonists and X-Men, that's the premier one. Even though there's been swaps back and forth and that sort of stuff, has quite a intricate background, which makes him through different iterations a kind of a perfect kind of morally gray antagonist that you can set off against Charles and his kind of ideal worldview. I always find it very kind of interesting when you have antagonists that have the exact same information and to some extent the same experience and the same kind of abilities to influence that, and they just go 2 completely different ways. Which I think he and Professor X is obviously. So yeah.
What's your favorite version of him?
I like the version in House of M, where he basically got everything he wanted.
Yeah. It's a good
one.
It
helps that his daughter was running it.
yeah, obviously, but yeah.
That's a part of the franchise I'm not big on, honestly.
Yeah.
That was early mid-2000. That was just before Civil War, wasn't it?
It was right after Avengers Assemble, so yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good baddie because he is that morally great, and you're just not sure whether you want to root for him, or whether you're just like, boo, he's the bad guy, and it's such a difficult one.
Yeah, and obviously when like in the original comic run, and I think also in like the 2000s movies, he's a Holocaust survivor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of puts another layer of, you know where it's coming from, right? You know that there's this idea, but the way he goes about it is just like, and I think that's kind of sets apart your protagonist and antagonists most of the time. Is just the way they go about it is just, much more extreme, I guess. And obviously showing a willingness to kind of put both humans and mutants, through the grinder to achieve his goals. I think it's one of those redeeming scenes, I guess, from I think it was Last Stand, where
I think so.
He tells the people that are in his inner circle to, wait back a bit as his army basically storms Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Get hit with all the anti-mutant stuff. That's, I mean, I think that kind of shows what he's capable of and willing to do for his cause. And he's shown it in different ways, but yeah.
I mean, my favorite redemption scene from him is actually not from that horror show vignette piece X3, but rather from the one before it, X2, from X-Men United, where he's in the plane with Mystique and with Pyro.
Mm.
And, obviously Pyro is going through some stuff at that point. And he just says to him, "What's your name?" John St. Allardyce says to him, "John." "What's your real name, John?" "Pyro." And the fact that he can go from being the big villain to that quiet moment makes me completely agree with you.
I think the flip side of that as well is actually in X3 where Mystique gets hit with the anti-mutant stuff, and turns into Raven, or I don't know. And he completely then kind of discards her. You're no longer of use to me, but you are also now human. It just kind of shows he's like, even that part in X2, it's kind of that quiet, humane moment, but you just know from all the rest of kind of the depiction that he's just doing it for his own gains, and that's the only. You only have use to him as long as you're useful, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, I think, is a great antagonist. Like there's bigger. I think there's bigger villains. Like they team up sometimes to face those bigger existential threats. But I think as an antagonist, Magneto kind of takes the cake on that.
Very
I was
nice.
laughing earlier as well when you said about General Zod. When you said it's the it's the perfect kind of show of what would Superman be like if he hadn't had that upbringing, if he hadn't had that loving and caring home, right? And complete disregard for humanity. I have Homelander from The Boys on my list for that exact reason, basically. I especially like the TV version. Anthony Starr brings so much to the character that it's just amazing. But it's basically Superman if he wasn't raised by a rural family, but by Big Pharma, basically. Like all the most evil things we can think of about Big Pharma, true or false, or fiction. That's who raised him, and that's exactly kind of who he became.
He, particularly like with Anthony Starr, he plays that character so well as well. Like at times he's almost sympathetic, and I can't stress the almost enough.
Yeah. He kind of skirts up against it, and you're like, "Oh, is this where his redemption arc is going to start?" And then, nope.
Yep. And then, of course, you think, "No, I've read the comic books. He can't have a redemption arc."
Nope.
he has to get worse.
Yeah, it's got to get a lot worse before
there
it
is
gets
so
any
much
better.
to come.
The comic book version of him, oh my god! But then, I think if they did half the things.
Yeah, honestly though, for The Boys, the comic book it just feels like an exercise of how much can I get away with before I get kind of censored into oblivion. Sorry,
it literally was though.
Yeah, I know, and it shows, right? And what I like about the TV version in that sense is it's slightly more nuanced, and because they're lifting it also to a more modern kind of view. I love the stabs at the MCU and the DCU and all that sort of stuff that they kind of throw in there, but it's much more relevant, I think, to the point they're trying to make. And the comic book is much more of an exercise in, this could be a lot worse, and I'm going to show you in the next book.
The comic book is just satire.
Yeah.
And it's Ennis at his worst to me. I'm sorry. To me, it's Garth Ennis at his worst. And knowing that I've liked Preacher.
It's Ennis Unchained, right? It's just there's no one telling. There's no voice of reason there, basically stopping him.
But I mean, I like Punisher Max. I like Preacher. I don't like the boys. I don't like the Authority. To go back to your Zod being Superman Unchained, the whole commentary for that for me was resolved in What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, also known as Superman versus the Elite. That's my whole.
Does not ring a bell. Yeah.
So we've had a question. We've had a question in the chat going, but in the comics, spoiler, how much was Homelander and how much was Black Noir?
So they actually all but acknowledged that all the times where Homelander was like, what are they talking about, was Black Noir, which I always took it to be a sort of 70-30 split.
Yeah.
Most of it is Black Noir. But then Homelander kept sort of seeing and hearing of all these things he was supposedly doing and thought, you know what, if I'm apparently doing this in like these time periods that I'm not aware of, stuff it, I might as well go and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they even, so at least this is what I got from it, the inference I made was that Homelander himself probably wouldn't have actually been completely and totally psychopathic if it wasn't for the fact that Black Noir was going and doing all this stuff in a Homelander costume, being a clone of him, which I really hope that they're gonna do with new Black Noir, because I really want that. I want to see Anthony Starr fighting Anthony Starr.
Yeah, they're gonna probably build in a different twist though, looking at what kind of how they handled Black Noir in the series, but we'll see.
It's a good one, because in the comics you don't overly know if it is just Homelander being this psycho, whether it is Black Noir, but obviously in the television show it is completely different, because we've seen that Black Noir is different,
a separate person.
So it's not quite the same. So it is Homelander in the show.
Yeah, exactly. So the question for the comic books is definitely what Ben is alluding to is kind of this split, but where the TV show is concerned, it's all Homelander all the time.
it's all
psycho. But the thing is, and the reason I have him on here is kind of, it's just a personification of that kind of corporate corruption that kind of similar to, throw money at the problem until it disappears kind of thing. Basically, spin doctored all the way to be a patriotic icon, basically, where behind the scenes it's not great. Kind of completely different track, I think. For me, is Sauron is on the list from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I can see he's just behind you.
Yeah. Right there.
Yes, the great eye of watching.
I didn't click until now that was there for that reason.
He's keeping an eye on us, but just the one eye.
True, as often as he can spare them.
Yeah. The thing about Sauron, especially in Lord of the Rings, of course, like we're now just setting aside the Silmarillion. In the Lord of the Rings, where he is kind of the main antagonist, it is an antagonist as a force of nature, right? Similar to the asteroid in Armageddon, more so than kind of this personification of evil. It's just, it's kind of this all-seeing eye. There's no discernible features, but what is much more kind of antagonistic about him is that he is, throughout all of the kind of how do you call it? All of the roadblocks that they encounter are because of Sauron. It's kind of, I think it kind of links in to what you were saying about Moriarty in the kind of that cartoon iteration. He's behind the scenes, kind of pulling all the strings. He's kind of that, that whisper of doubt in the ear of Theoden King. He uses the jealousy of the nine kings of man to kind of corrupt them into the Nazgul. He, is arguably kind of the force behind Saruman. Even though Saruman thinks he is in control, it feels like he is kind of being played there as well. So, all of these things, all of these manipulations of others, without really having to get his hands dirty. And then, through the One Ring as well, obviously, almost succeeding again at the final moment, were it not for kind of yet another thing kind of he put into play in the form of Gollum. Right? It's all of this stuff that happens is because of him, through him, basically. And that's, I think, what for me makes him truly kind of good. And again, like I said, a force of nature type of antagonist, more so than anything else.
I'm with you there. I mean, I was kind of raising an eyebrow when you said about Wormtongue, because Wormtongue is pretty directly from Saruman.
Yeah, but obviously, but I mean, there is kind of this pool of Saruman that I feel like Saruman, like if you're reading through kind of the books and also the depiction, obviously in the excellent movies, he is being manipulated into thinking what he's thinking. So everything he does, I think, is an extension of Sauron's kind of pull on him.
It's not.
So that's kind of why
It's not one I would have considered. It's a really good one because there isn't anything redeemable about him. He is pulling all these strings, causing all this chaos, but it's not one that I would have thought of. It's a good one. I like it. It's making me think.
Yes.
Brings me to a next one, which is much more a personification than anything else. Like it's kind of the other way around, I guess. In Agent Smith from The Matrix, there's a couple more things about him that I think makes him a great antagonist. But I think he's kind of the personification of this computer state, right? He's kind of similar to what a I don't know, deep state operative would be, that is kind of playing against your protagonist. In the first movie, especially, it's kind of like they can pop up at any time, right? This is illustrated by the Lady in Red training program, where if you're not one of the human rebels, you're one of them. And that kind of makes it this eerie, always present kind of danger of, if you come across anyone in the Matrix, look around again and it could be an agent, and kind of Agent Smith being the lead there of the original three agents.
Three in the first film.
Yeah. Was pretty awesome. What I love in the sequels is that it starts to shift from that, because he starts to be an antagonist not just for the human rebels, but also actually for the Matrix itself. You get these three kind of parties going there.
It's almost like, so in the first film, he's almost meant to be a sort of avatar of order, whereas then the sequels, he becomes a flip side. He's literally an avatar of chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, who doesn't love that moment in Reloaded? Me. Me too.
Yeah. I love that one. What I love about that whole story arc, like there's ups and downs in the original trilogy. I think I saw the fourth one, the Wholly Forgettable thing, Resurrection. It's called. But what I like about like the first three movies is he's kind of he's going in the opposite direction of Neo, right? Neo is and again, this is similar to Magneto, getting the same information and going, completely off the other way, because he's coming from this rigid sort of control program into a self-aware entity where he is indeed an agent of chaos. But the most important part is that they are very similar to each other because they both refuse their roles in kind of the grander scheme of things, right? And that takes Neo down a certain path, and that takes Agent Smith down a certain path, and has them face off in that third and final installment of that original trilogy. I just also like Hugo Weaving, to be fair. So
yeah.
Yep.
Weaving
that helps.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, he's just a very good actor. Even when he
Yes.
literally phoned it in to be Megatron, he was still good.
Well, yes, that was literally on the phone. Yes.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah. So he brings so much to that role that I don't think you can see that as separate things. What I also like about kind of the depiction of the Matrix and their agents and how that kind of splits off is in the second movie. There's these three new agents, and they're all kind of, rather than it was Smith. I don't know the other two names of the agents, but all the new agents in the second film are all have last names that end in son. There's this, John's son and Agent, all that sort of thing, to depict that they are now upgrades of these older agent versions. But I like that he's still kind of in there and with kind of that change that he went through because Neo kind of screwed him over. He just corrupts the entire system in a very different way than Neo, who kind of, again, like I said, also refuses his role of completing that cycle and the line of code and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I like him.
It's a good villain, and I do truly think he is a villain. There's not anything redeemable about him.
No.
Yeah, it's the only time where you can argue, oh no, he's not just a bad guy, is the first one, where he's basically an antivirus program.
Yeah. But yeah, even not, maybe not a bad guy, but still towards the protagonist.
Still an antagonist.
Still an antagonist to the storyline. Yeah. Which brings me to my last entry. Maybe a bit out of left field. The Gentleman from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode Hush. There's a couple of things, like both in universe as well as out of universe, that I like kind of about these villains. But what I love about this kind of, it's a supernatural evil, obviously, but what I like about this from evil perspective is, like, we're social creatures, right? And we one of our key defenses is to get other people to help us, especially when it comes to this supernatural stuff. And one of the ways to do that is to shout for help, right? And the first thing that they do, take that away, right? There's no defending against these creatures, and then kind of it takes on this form of night terrors / sleep paralysis, where they then extract the hearts and all that sort of stuff. Super creepy, and they do it in this kind of very fairly kind of polite looking, smiling.
It's terrifying. I can remember
Super
watching that when I was about 12. I was terrified for weeks after
Yes.
watching this episode.
Yeah.
Even now, my head is, the song that you go, can't call for help, can't call for this. That is now playing in my head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Yeah. So from an in character perspective, I like that. Like in universe perspective, it makes so much sense, and it's just a very good concept for evil guys.
And I think it worked so well for season 4 because it's not like it was in high school. College is a very isolating prospect for a lot of people, and it worked so well.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's the first time we ever see Willow and Tara together at all as well.
Yeah.
And and I also love the technical achievement behind it, where it's like, you can't win an Emmy without dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom. Here, I just did.
Yeah, that's kind of the out of universe thing. What I like about them that I alluded to is that there was a lot of this, arguments going on of this show relies too much on its dialogue and the witticisms to capture and keep the attention, and without that you're nothing, right? There's no sustenance or substance to this to the show. But what he did there was basically kind of took that challenge and said, "Hold my beer," and and put on a show. Basically, won another Emmy.
Until, of course, Beer Bad, which was, God, talk about hold my beer.
Yeah, yeah. What I like about kind of this from a more technical perspective is that by taking out the dialogue and using the music to such an extent, it kind of starts to focus your attention much more towards the sound, where it's kind of a weird thing for such a visual medium anyway, to kind of heighten your senses towards all the other sounds that are happening in that episode. And voices, obviously, from a human evolutionary perspective, is kind of something that we are drawn to normally. And when that falls away, it's an hour-long TV show where 30 minutes of it, there's no dialogue.
Yeah.
And there is no way that this episode loses your attention at no point. So that's just, it's
such a good episode, and the gentlemen are terrifying. They really are.
Yes.
And they're another one that I don't think have any redeeming qualities. For that one episode, they've haunted me for 20 odd years.
Yeah.
Well, they did what they had to do. I used them recently in my D&D campaign. It was fun.
That would have been interesting.
I wonder how that would actually really work in a D&D campaign, because talking is a free action. What do you do if you can't talk? Oh, God.
But the thing is, as well, what you need to keep in mind is that most spells have a verbal component.
Verbal component. So it's like casting a zone of silence on everything.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in trouble because my one of my DMs is watching.
Yeah.
Don't even think about it, Nate.
I can send you the. I can send you the monster stats.
Remember, beholders can cast silence.
Am I able to use a fireball still, do you think?
No. Fireball is VSM.
Yeah, it has a verbal component.
A verbal, a somatic, and a material.
Okay.
Anyway, that's my list. That's my 5.
Okay, so it's me. Nathan's just spoke up going, thank you for the wonderful idea. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Grabella is dead. She's gone.
Well, if you also...
is gone. Thanks.
If you want silence, there's the other kind of silence as well.
Yes.
From Doctor Who?
Mm.
Well,
There's that
seeing
too.
we've gone on to Doctor Who, I might as well give my first one. My first bad guy is the Master.
Which version?
All of
All of
them.
them.
We are not going down that route where you nitpick. We are going down all of them. So yeah, so for anyone who hasn't watched this and doesn't know who the Master is, it's one of the best bad guys that you will ever see in Doctor Who, and has many versions. My personal favourite is Missy.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that.
Yeah, you know I was going to say that, but that's okay. So she is my personal favourite because she is both bad guy and friend to the Doctor. You know, it's the end. I don't want to say it's the end because I really hope the Master comes back. And not just the version that we've had, who was just brilliant. I can never remember the actor's name, but he was
Sasha Day one.
What was that? Sorry.
Sasha Day one.
Sasha Day one. He was epic. That Rasputin.
I may be mispronouncing his surname.
That's okay, because I would have done it anyway. But that scene with Rasputin, mwah, absolutely brilliant.
Was absolutely brilliant.
Yes, but I feel like the character of the Master, took a massive step backwards in, you know, his storytelling, where Missy, I felt, was very much, you didn't know which direction she was going to go in, even right at that last minute where she was, you know, taken out by herself, by John Sim. It's just an amazing character. You know, what I like about the Master is she's been Mel. You know, she's been Mel for all these different variants of him, herself, themselves, and we've got to this character who, she doesn't know who she is anymore. She's, you know, she needs to find out what's going on, and you know, she's been held in the TARDIS for decades, months. We don't really know how long she's been held there, and I think it's a good character, and it allows both the Doctor to grow and the Master to grow. And I just think through all the different variants, it's just a really, really compelling bad guy. Have you guys got a favourite version of them?
John Sim.
Which one?
I don't watch Who.
Well, you don't, but I know John does.
John Sim.
John Sim.
I love the whole arc with the drums and all that. I love that.
Yeah, such a good series. That's what I mean. I think the Master has had so many good actors in the last 14 seasons of New Who. New Who. We've had such amazing, compelling actors, and they've done the character justice that was started so many years ago by showing exactly what Doctor Who is good at. You know, getting a new actor in and just rolling with the character. And it's a shame because Ben's not here, because I'm sure he would have a favourite, but he's disappeared off the screen for a few moments.
Yes, so, technical difficulties.
Yeah, you're both having a bit of them tonight. Sorry, everyone. So I'll go to my next one. My next one is another kind of big bad corporation, and that's the Umbrella Corporation. From the Resident Evil. Obviously, it's in the video games and the films, but I just want to talk about it in the films. Obviously, it's unethical. You know, they're doing illegal practices. They've got biological experiments. They've got creation of deadly viruses. They've got the cover-up when, you know, it all went wrong with Raccoon City, and they've put profits over ethics. You know, they're prioritizing profits. They've blown up a city. They've let out a virus. And they don't alert anyone, and they allow it to continue. And it obviously creates the zombie virus, but instead of, you know, trying to help the world, they kind of brought it to its knees. And then eventually you find out in the last film it was all planned. And I just think it's an awful organization. There's not much you could say. There's no redeeming qualities, and I think as a film bad guy, where you've kind of watched the story as it goes along, I just think it's an excellent story. Don't get me wrong, I think there's some major plot holes Resident Evil kind of lost its way a little bit, but I'm still a big fan. But the corporation itself, I think it's just a very good example of the big bad corporation, shall we say. Let's have a look. My next one, sorry, carry on.
I just want to step back. Ben, on technical delay, just reported in that his favorite version of the Master is also John Sims.
I suspected it was going to be.
But I do find it interesting how we've all picked these corporate villains. I had Gordon Gekko, Ben has Kaiba, John, you have Homelander, and now Umbrella Corp and Albert Wesker, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also a show of the times, right? Where moving in that direction.
Unfortunately, yeah. But yeah, no, I just, the Umbrella Corporation, I think it just starts in the first film. They send a team to find out what's happened to the Red Queen, and it turns out the Red Queen was doing what she was designed to do. She was designed to stop the virus getting out into the universe, out into the world, and she was going against the corporation. And you always think that the Red Queen's the bad guy, but it's not, and it is the corporation, which I think it's just a brilliant story.
I mean, the laser hole was a bit much.
Oh no!
Was it though?
No.
I mean, it feels like it was.
I love that.
No.
I love it and I hate it all at the same time.
I love that scene.
But I love the throwback to it in the last film.
Yes.
Absolutely
Alice
love that.
finally just steps over it. Yeah.
I just love it. It's a good set of films. I just wish it hadn't lost its way between like.
I think we can make a list of antagonists where the antagonists are these creepy young girls.
Oh yeah, you can go back to The Shining for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's really where a lot of the modern ones are taking it from. Is Kubrick's interpretation of The Shining.
Yes.
Just adds a creep factor, I feel.
It really does. It really does.
Very, very much. Okay, I'm going to go on to another one that's a bit controversial, but I want to discuss Harry Potter. So I suspect you're both going to think, she's going to pick Voldemort. That's what they all do. But I'm not. I'm picking a different character because I think there's a character that's even worse than Voldemort, and that's Umbridge. Have you guys both seen it?
Didn't like the books.
Okay.
I didn't like the first one. So
Professor Umbridge is the Ministry of Magic's state-sanctioned Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. So she comes in the 5th book. Am I correct there? Fifth-ish book. And she's basically told that she cannot teach this way. She cannot teach this way, and she just causes chaos. She gets rid of Dumbledore. She gets rid of the lady who does the divination classes. She has what are they called? The quill that if you use it in detention, it basically writes whatever you're saying on your hand. It cuts the wound, like the words, into your hand. But she doesn't stop there, because as the books progress, she becomes sort of the Ministry of Magic's policymaker against Muggleborns. Her character basically embodies a bureaucratic tyranny, and I think she's just a stark contrast to the values of justice, fairness, compassion that the series is meant to promote. And what I love is the fact is she's so subtle about it at first until you kind of watch or read further into it, and I think it's such a good character that yes, you would expect Voldemort to be the big bad, but I think she's worse because Voldemort he can't help it because he was born from a love potion, but she can. She doesn't have that. She's just nasty. And I think it's such a compelling bad guy, and I think she's very much underrated for that.
I just love how it contrasts with her kind of colorful appearance.
Yes. What I like in the film, though, is if you watch it, she gets more and more pink as she gets worse.
Yeah.
She gets the pink gets brighter, and I really do love how they did that in the films. It is brilliant. But Dolores Umbridge, I think, is one of the worst characters in the Harry Potter universe for that reason. It's not Voldemort, it is her, because she's just nasty.
All I'm going to say is the quill.
You missed it. You missed
You
it.
just brought it up.
I was explaining about the quill. What was it? I must not tell lies. Was it?
Yeah, and then it cuts it into the back of his hand every time.
Yeah, that was the start when you knew that she was going to be horrible, but it just gets worse and worse.
I thought she was going to turn out to be Voldemort using a polyjuice potion when I read it as a kid.
That would have been logical, but yeah, no, she's just nasty, and I think it's very good because it kind of shows how the Ministry of Magic is becoming. Obviously, I don't want to compare it to real world issues and things like that, but it is a reflection that we do have these pencil pushers who red tape everything, and people in the chat agree. 100%. So my last one, I'm gonna be going back to zombie films. Have any of you seen Land of the Dead? Once. Okay. So my bad guy from that series is Kaufman. So basically, he is the person who created the city that they're all living in. He's the one who's funded the soldiers. He's the one who pays, the wages. He pays for everyone to have games and vices. And they owe him basically for that. And he just becomes a tyrant the more and more the film goes on. Yes, it is the skyscraper one, Nate. So he basically, it's another example of Lex Luthor, but it's in the zombie apocalypse. So he kind of represents sort of the elite in the post like the zombie world, where most people are struggling to survive. He controls the last city, and it's a very strict class system. He exploits the less fortunate. He treats them poorly, which he does with a lot of the characters, and then these characters start to fight back. His actions and decisions prioritize his own interest and power, and it's at the extent of the whole population of the city. And it's just another example of what power does to someone if they've got ultimate power and there isn't anyone to stand up against them, which I like. And obviously it's a zombie film, and it's George Romero, and I think it's one of his best films. So I might be a bit rose-tinted glasses, but I do really like this film. In the comments, we've got the only movie where a zombie is the hero. Go garage attendant mechanic. Yeah. So that's my list of bad guys. So do we have any bad guys that we think deserve one last mention before we go?
So many. I mean, actually, there is one that is less a bad guy and more of a villain, and I'm pulling up a DVD case here because
Megamind, yeah.
Megamind. Of course you're a villain. Just not a super one. What's the difference? Presentation. He absolutely deserves it because he revels in the villainy, and he revels in the goofiness, and also, like all the best villains, when presented with a greater threat, says, wait a minute, this is not helping me achieve my goals. and then ends up becoming the hero.
Yeah, I've not seen it for a while, but yeah, no, I can see.
Movie.
My one is Cylons, because I forgot to mention them in my list, and I only did 4 because I forgot. Oops. So yeah, the Cylons.
Original or revived?
Revived. I've not seen the original series.
Fair. To be fair, the Cylons are better in the revived series. Adama's better in the revived series. Starbuck's better in the original.
Okay, we'll have to agree to disagree on Starbuck. But yeah, no. So I think the Cylons are great bad guys because they've become so popular in science fiction. You know, they were initially the really bad, you know, the really big bad guys. You know, they've launched a surprise attack on humanity. You know, practically destroyed the human race. And yes, the conflict between humans and Cylons is a central theme, but not all the Cylons are evil. You know, some of them are. They're not. You know, you've got the 6s. You've got is it the 4s?
Remember.
It's been so long since I've watched it, and I'm looking at the DVD box set right now. But
so you've got the 6s.
I think there was a lot of.
You've got the 6s.
There was a lot of. Sorry.
It's all right. Go on.
In the reboot, what I liked about them, kind of reskinning them, like literally, was that it added this layer of subterfuge, right? Where it's no longer this quick and easy external threat. It could be anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, because you had both the automaton ones with the Lady Deathstrike claws, and then you had the Terminators.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term, they were Terminators.
Yes.
But it's just, they were such good villains. You know, they were complex. I'm just trying to look. So that, you know, they were complex. They were morally grey in some bits because, you know, they had the ability to adapt. You know, the 6s, they adapted. You know, they wanted more out of the life that they'd made. And then you had the ones that were on the ship, that, you know, the one that tried to kill Adama in the first series. They were sleeper agents. They didn't know, so they took on these whole lives, and then all of a sudden, you know, the kill switch was flicked, and they became these bad guys. And a lot of the time, they obviously, when they rebooted, they wanted to resume those lives. And I think that Cylons are such a good baddie because they are that morally grey. And I think that's the best part about some of these baddies is they do have that complexity of being morally grey.
Well, can we acknowledge that they did do the single biggest bit of good in the series as well? They disabled the new fighters, so they had to use the proper Vipers.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll let you have that one.
I can see that.
Okay, so Ben, do you have one last bad guy that you want to talk about? No?
Oh, sorry, was that you literally glitched out for a second there.
Oh. Do you have one last honorable mention?
Oh, one last honorable mention.
Rita Repulsa.
No, I'm not going to do Rita Repulsa. I'm actually I mean, Vengeance is tempting.
There you go.
But I'm actually going to say, and this is one that it's not a full-blown villain, but Alex in Time Force.
Ooh, that's controversial.
The thing is, he's not
a villain.
He's not a villain in the sense of he's the villain, but he is in every sense of the word an antagonist. Like, because, like, and particularly an antagonist for Wes, which is really funny because obviously Jason Thorpe plays both of them, and again, does a really good job at playing two characters in the same scene. And even if you were to turn around and remove the fact that they decided he had to have the slick back hair for Alex, you wouldn't lose track of who was who.
Yes.
Because he gave them distinct characterizations.
Yeah.
But it's like he does things to help them, but it is always in service of his own goals.
Yeah.
And his own motivations. And I do wish that they'd adapted his counterpart from Sentai's full plot, where he was meant to be the original Quantum Ranger, but knew the Quantum Ranger was meant to get killed in the final battle. So he then manipulated the whole thing to make Eric's
But that would have
counterpart
been too complicated for 2001. You know, that they already had quite a lot of issues with that series anyway. Obviously, being the year that it was. So yeah, they probably it's a bit of a dodgy area there, really, wasn't it? Now then.
Just cut some of the frack stuff. Give us more evil Power Rangers.
All right. John, do you have a last one?
A whole list, I think.
Oh.
Go for it.
I'm just looking back at my shelf. I'm looking back at Sauron. It probably appeared. No, I wanted to mention, with the risk of spoilers for something that has come out, decades ago, for Watchmen. I think Ozymandias kind of speaks to quite a lot of things we touched on, but what I think it primarily touches on is that most good antagonists, at least, are the heroes of their own story, right? And I think he's definitely the kind of the personification of that. And the difference usually between protagonists and antagonists is that the antagonists usually don't stop themselves when there should be a voice in the back of their head saying, well, maybe, the ends do not justify the means. And then for them, it usually does. And I think Ozymandias is a big one there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one. And it's been a very long time since I've watched that.
It's I like kind of the comic book and then the HBO series that kind of ties into that much more than the film adaptation, to be fair.
I've not actually watched the HBO series.
No,
oh my god.
I haven't seen it either, but
amazing.
Yeah. Then again, I stopped with the movie. Actually, I stopped with the movie at the prison scene.
At the prison, okay, yeah.
Because it just got too gory, and I'm like, I love the comic. I like it in that way, but the movie did not portray it in a way that I wanted to watch it.
The series kind of does away entirely with the movie. They're saying that movie didn't happen. We're putting this series in kind of modern time, but everything in the comic books happened in the time that it happened in the comic books. So you're just kind of getting Watchmen 10 years, 20 years later, something along those lines. It's pretty cool. It's recommended.
Well, then they don't have the best character in there possible. So,
correct. Yeah,
Rorschach.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. But there's nice callbacks to Rorschach. It's pretty cool.
Good.
Because there's also, like, at the end of the comic, he sends out this his notes, right? So it ties into that as well. It's exactly. Yeah.
I've got to ask two questions. One, is Dr. Manhattan in it? And two,
in the series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is.
And two, has he finally learned to make some clothes other than a blinking Speedo?
No.
No, that's iconic to him.
Oh dear. Okay, on that note, I think we've had a good podcast tonight. Next week's episode is two of us are going to be reviewing 3 episodes of the original series. So that should be interesting, shouldn't it, John?
I don't know. I've never seen any episode of the original series.
We're gonna give it a go. I think.
I look forward to watching it.
Yeah, we're gonna give it a go. I think the votes were the edge of. Is it the edge of the future?
City
on
the Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
The Tribbles episode.
Trouble with Tribbles.
Tribbles.
Nice. I like that one.
Which I think is a good one because obviously we can yeah, we kind of I think we've both kind of seen that anyway with DS9.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And then the other episode, I don't want to say it's a mock time because I might be wrong with the I haven't looked at the votes. It might be that one, but we'll see.
Was it not Balance of Terror?
It might be Balance of Terror. It was pretty close between them all. There was like 4 or 5 that were pretty close.
Both of those are very good episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Balance of Terror is the single best, but
we were given a list back in 2020. And then last week I felt terrible because I didn't know anything that anyone was talking about at points. So I was like, I'll do the challenge. I'll finally do the challenge. So yeah, that's next week's episode. So John's been roped into watching 3 episodes with me, and we're going to review them. So that should be it. So we'll see you next time.